everybody, I'm Latrina Patrick. Welcome to day 8 of our 90-day grant writing tutorial. Last week we set the foundation of what a grant is and gave you all the basics. Yesterday we started introducing the components of a proposal and we talked about the problem statement. Well, today we are going to talk about the program description. This is really key. It is the most important aspect of any proposal that you will submit. In the problem statement, you talk about the severity of the problem in your community. Well, in the program description, you now get to show them the solution to that problem and how your program is the one to offer that solution and to do it the best that they possibly can. So let's talk about what goes into the program description. There are several areas that go into this section. First and foremost, you're going to obviously describe your program. This is where you start to include your evidence-based data. So if you're using a program that's evidence-based, that meaning it has been proven to work, you need to explain that program and justify why you chose it, why it's the right program for the particular demographic that you're working with. Anytime you can use evidence-based, the better. For most programmatic grants, funders are looking to fund something that has been proven to work, whereas if it's something like a research grant or something different, then that's a different type of grant. But for the majority of the time, the types of grants you're going to go after, you want to try to find something that's been proven to work and there's research and data behind it. So this is where you're going to cite that data. The first thing that you're going to lead off with in your program description, though, is your goals and objectives. Every program has an overall goal of what they're trying to do. Whether it's we're trying to reduce teen pregnancy, we're trying to reduce cases of HIV and AIDS, we're trying to improve high school graduation rates. You have a goal for your program. So you really want to stick to pretty much, stating the one goal. And then for that goal, or if you have more than one, I definitely wouldn't recommend more than two, but if you just stick with the one goal, depending on the scale of your project, then you're going to have about 3 to 5 objectives to go along with that goal. So the goal is the broad pie-in-the-sky dream. The objectives are the activities that you will do to accomplish those goals, okay? So you want to break those down. I have a simple rule, and some of you may have heard this when you're talking about writing. When it comes to goal and objectives, you want your objectives to be SMART, meaning they should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. If you adhere to that in any objective that you write, it really goes a long way in describing what your program is doing and what it's trying to accomplish. Another reason why your goals and objectives are so significant is because in a few days when we start talking about the evaluation, or your evaluation goes right back and is directly related to your goals and objectives, this is how you're going to be able to determine if your program has been successful and if it's been effective in your community. So good goals and objectives are key. The other thing that's included in the program description is the organizational background. Again, another important section. This is where you get to tell your story about your organization and why your organization is qualified and capable of doing what it is that you're setting out to do with your program that you're asking for funding. So here you're going to describe your history of your organization. How long have you been around? How long have you been doing this type of program? Whether or not you have a history in serving this particular demographic that you're working with. This is where you want to sell that. You also want to identify your staff and their experience and their credentials. So, for example, if you are doing, say, an after-school program that's, a high population of the kids in your program, or Hispanic kids, or kids from another culture, well, this is where you want to brag about your staff who are accustomed to working with that particular population. A big term that we use in the grant world when it comes to this type of thing is cultural competence. It always looks good to a funder when your organization is what we refer to as culturally competent. So meaning that you are mindful of the different things that you need to consider when working with a specific population. And that can be a lot of different things, but cultural competency is key. And so when you're talking about your staff and their history and their ethnic makeup and how it relates to the population that you're serving, you score big points in that area. So that's another thing that you want to show. And if your organization has specific accreditations or recognitions or awards that's related to what it is that you're doing, then you want to highlight those things here. So showing how successful and how experienced your organization is key, because you want to let the funders know that you are capable of doing what it is that you're setting out to do. So you're sharing with them your organizational capacity. That's another way it may be termed in some of the funding announcements. The other thing that you're going to include in your program description is your timeline. You want to outline your timeline for the funder to see how it is that you're going to accomplish all those things you laid out in your goals and objectives. So these activities should relate back to those objectives, and so you kind of want to put together a graph or a chart, more like a chart than a graph, of how it is that you're going to accomplish under what particular time period. So you want to start this out by identifying, what you're going to be doing. Say month 1, we're going to hire appropriate staff. Month 2, we're going to begin, pre-evaluation, whatever it is that you're going to be doing to carry out your program. You want to outline those milestones, not step by step by step, but the key milestones need to be identified in your timeline. So that's really the quick and dirty of what goes into your program description. One of the most important things I'll tell you about, not just writing the program description, but in writing your entire narrative, which makes up your proposal, you want to write from a standpoint that the person reading your grant has no idea of who you are, your community, what the makeup is. You can't make assumptions that, they know, or they may Google it. They're not going to do that. They're not going to assume the best, and they're not going to assume the worst. They're not going to assume anything. All they have to go by is what you tell them. So this is not the time to kind of skim through what you're going to be doing. This is the time to be very detailed and specific about what your project is and how you're going to accomplish it. And you do that within the parameters of the time and page limits, that they give you to do it in, but be very specific. You don't want to make any assumptions, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that unsuccessful grant proposals do. The people who write them, is that they make assumptions that people are going to read into what they wrote. Nobody is going to read into it. They're not going to assume anything. You have to treat it as if they don't know what your program is about or anything about your organization. Okay, so I hope that what you've learned today is helpful to you. This is just the highlights of what goes into, a program description, but I think that I identified some very key things that you can fall back on. Tomorrow we're going to continue what goes into a proposal, and so we'll pick up what goes into the evaluation plan. That's very key, and you really want to make sure you tune in for that. So if you have any questions about anything that you've seen here today, then make sure you leave me a question here on our YouTube channel. So that way everybody can access the responses and be able to see, the answers, because they probably have the same questions that you have. Also, while you're on this channel, make sure you subscribe. You can subscribe, and that way you get immediate notification whenever I upload a new video. Along those lines, I send out an email update every week telling what it is that we're going to cover that week. So you get my agenda, and that way you can plug in on those things that are really important to you. So just go over to my website, www.greatervisionconsulting.com, and subscribe to those email updates. And as a gift to you for doing that, I will send you a Grant Writers Toolkit, which is going to include a proposal template, a budget template, a sample letters of commitment, and just excellent resources and links that every grant writer needs in order to write a winning proposal. So I hope that you found everything helpful. I look forward to coming back tomorrow when we discuss our evaluation plan. So I'll see you then.